Welcome to New York Institute of Technology's podcast, The Scope. Produced by the College of Osteopathic Medicine, our episodes focus on the medical school experience and how it helps shape future physicians. Learn about exciting new health and wellness initiatives, cutting-edge medical research and technology, and how to effectively navigate medical school. We are excited to have you join us.
Good evening, and welcome to the Scope podcast. I'm Arsh Sheth, third-year medical student at NYTCOM Arkansas campus, and I'm excited to be your host for tonight's special podcast. We're fortunate to be joined by a terrific conversation panel from both our campus locations. Please welcome our special guest from our New York campus, Dr. Joanne Donahue, Director of Clinical Research and Professor in Department of Osteopathic Medicine and practicing nutrition and exercise physiologist, Dr. Stephen DeRusso, Assistant Professor in Clinical Specialties and Director of Surgery and Director of Military Medical Students, and Kelly Borges, Osteopathic Medical Student and member of the NYTCOM DO PhD program. Additionally, welcome to our special guest from our Arkansas campus, Dr. Todd Green, Assistant Professor in Anatomy and in the Biological and Anatomical Sciences, Dr. Adrian Loftus, Assistant Professor in Clinical Specialties and practicing OB-GYN, Harrison Dean, third-year osteopathic medical student and anatomy scholar, and Ornella Nono, first-year osteopathic medical student. Tonight, we will discuss benefits, challenges, personal experiences, and many valuable insights related to medical students participating in research during the medical school years. Thank you all for joining us today. I must add that as a student researcher myself, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We will take all the valuable insights that you have for our listeners today. So let's jump right into our first question. What are some of the overall benefits for medical students who participate in research during medical school? Dr. Green, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I think research is incredibly important for our students. I think it helps our students become well-rounded as medical professionals. And it's important to remember that practical medicine is founded in research. I think it's really important for students to have a background to assist with their understanding of how sound science is conducted in the medical field.
Thank you for that response, Dr. Green. Dr. Donahue, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I am going to add to that from a clinical perspective of why I think it's important for medical students, because I just recently came from a conference where we had physicians present, and learning to understand how to read research after you participate in it in medical school is a big factor when you do. There's a lot of, I don't think a lot of people realize that 80% of the studies out there are sponsored by pharmaceutical companies in the industry. And how to interpret that research and what goes into it, I think stems right from medical school, that if you're actively involved with it, you have a new appreciation of how to interpret it better.
Those are excellent points. Dr. Loftus, do you have something to add?
Yes, I agree with both my colleagues, as well as it gives us a basis of where students are going and how to use research and practice. So evidence-based medicine, these are words that we hear quite frequently now. And this is where evidence-based medicine is founded, is from research. So being able to use the research statistically, as well as using it in a practical manner to give recommendations to patients, as well as build clinical diagnoses.
Thank you, Dr. Loftus. Kelly, I would love to hear from your student perspective.
Sure, thanks. So as a student, I can tell you this is the best way to decide if you want to pursue research as a career is by getting involved when you have the privilege of doing it in medical school. The only commitment you're making is to your PI and to your team. So if you end up not wanting to work with mice, let's say after your time spent in research in medical school, it's a very low stakes commitment right there, right? So getting that exposure during medical school to help solidify if that's what you want to continue into your career, I think that that's a perfect opportunity to partake in research. But also, like Dr. D was saying, understanding how to interpret studies, it becomes much more meaningful when you actually conduct the methods. Some of the methods, of course, you're not going to be able to do too many while you're in medical school, but conducting the methods yourself allows you to see where the human error can occur in a method. And it helps you understand what the limitations are of certain findings if you read them in a clinical journal. So clinical journals will publish findings that have a statistically significant p-value, and then your role as a clinician is to determine whether it's clinically significant to carry on to your patients, like Dr. Loftus had mentioned.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, these are excellent points for our listeners for sure. I think I would move on to the next question, and this is something that I want to direct to the panel and the faculty on the panel as well. In your opinion, what is the best way for students to approach faculty about research? And in the same way, should they have a project in mind before talking to faculty?
First and foremost, I would recommend by reading through the research synopses on our directory. That's the best way to figure out if there's anyone that does research that's exciting to you or maybe useful for your future specialty. When you do that, the next step is to email that faculty, talk to them a little bit about what interests you about their research, then maybe try to set up a one-on-one meeting. See if you get along with that particular faculty member, see if they're actually accepting students to do research, and that can lead to a lot of other conversation too. Maybe there's a different professor that fits you a little bit more in the things that you want to do in your career. I think tailoring your research to something that's going to be helpful for you is the most important.
Thank you, Dr. Green. That's a great answer. Dr. Donahue?
Yeah, so I actually I will address this one because as the director of clinical research, I do get a lot of students who will refer to me from other faculty members who simply just don't have a project going on or don't have the time. So I think it's very clear that students should understand that we do not have enough research for every student to be involved in research. So therefore, there is a level of competition that they really have to be aware of. I do not like when students come, and I tell them all the time, do not just approach somebody and say, I want to do research. We're not there to figure that out. I think what Dr. Green said was dead on. Do your research, do literature search on something you're interested in doing. Say, hey, I've looked into this. I've had tenacious students who have not let it go. I say, look, I just don't have anything. And they're like, I did all this. I did this. I just need a mentor. And that says a lot to me. That shows me that they're actually really involved in it and not just maybe searching because they want to look better for a residency, which is a very real thing in medical school. These students are scared. They want to match to their right residency program. So research is a big consideration for that. I think they should understand why they want to do the research and then definitely do a literature search and have some idea of a project in their mind.
That's a great answer, Dr. Donahue. I would love to hear from the students as well to see how they have approached faculty in the past. Harrison, I see you have something to say.
Yeah, so from a student perspective, I think that a lot of students are afraid of that initial cold email, as it's sometimes referred. Perhaps you haven't met them prior to any of the experiences that you're currently participating in, and you just want to jump in to see if you can even set up a meeting, see if there's openings in the lab, things like that. And I definitely myself have done a lot of this research, as we've mentioned previously here, finding if this lab is something that I'm interested in working with, if this PI or this faculty is someone that I'd be interested in working with. Just like that was mentioned prior to doing a literature review on the topics that are within the lab, is everything I did prior to sending this cold email. And in this email, usually you want to find some way, shape, or form a way for you to include your interests in the lab, talk about this potential idea that you may be interested in working on, find a way to display your prior technical and writing skills that you might have had prior to looking into this lab. And that could be research that you've done beforehand, or that could also just be other opportunities that you've taken advantage of that can kind of showcase these technical skills. Because again, a lot of these labs are going to be very productive. They're going to be a very well-oiled machine, and they're going to want someone that's going to be able to be a good contribution to the team. And so definitely don't be afraid to be that student that sends the cold email right from the beginning, tells them your interest, tells them your background, and maybe even attach your CV on there from the get-go and just say, if you have the opportunity to meet with me, I'd love to give you more of a well-rounded talk on who I am as a student and what my interests are in projects and things like that.
Thank you for all these excellent insights, everyone. Another question that I have similarly in this domain as well, what kind of skills can you gain from student research? Dr. DeRusso, I see you have something to add.
One of the things that was mentioned before about, what are some of the benefits of doing the research? One of the big things that we do in our research group is a lot of statistics. So we do statistics analysis. So when I look at it with a medical student, there are kind of like a couple of things, I know they want to get out of it. And one is research for, their application, et cetera. The other is to present at a meeting. But for me, for our group, one of the biggest things to get out of it is actually a firm statistical set of tools that they can use in the future. And I think that is just one of the really big benefits. And it goes with what the other panelists had said about being able to interpret research data, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, that's one of the big positives to get out of students doing research in our group.
Thank you, Dr. DeRusso. That's a great insight. Anyone else have anything to add about what skills that students can gain from the research? Maybe a student perspective on what skills they have gained as a student being involved in research.
Yeah, so I have to mention the technical skills, right, that we can get with research. In one of my projects, I think it's safe to say that I touch on 3 medical specialties in one of the projects I'm doing. So by learning ultrasound echocardiography, there's a little bit of cardiology in there. Yes, we are doing them on mice, so it's a little bit smaller scale, but overall the technique is about the same. And then on those hearts, once dissected from the mouse, I'm putting them through micro CT for imaging. So we get a little bit of radiology in there too. Image processing, setting up the CT, understanding the principles of CT imaging. After the micro CT, it's time to section the tissue and stain it. So there's your pathology there when you're doing the histology studies, looking for different biomarkers, and again, using different techniques in the lab to identify whatever proteins or whatever structures you're studying at a molecular level. Moreover, I definitely agree with the statistical skill set that you're going to get. Just again, within one project, you may be doing various different types of statistical testing or hypothesis analyses. So yeah, statistical methods are very useful no matter whether you're doing basic science, translational research, or clinical research. I think that's probably the broadest skill that I've gained during my time in research.
Thank you, Kelly. Harrison, do you have something to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I think building on what's been mentioned before too is a lot of students think that one of the only opportunities you have to gain leadership skills is with organizations and clubs and interest groups on campus. But I think that research is one of the most vital opportunities that students can take advantage of to get those leadership skills. Specifically for myself, I was fortunate enough to lead a satellite research team with about 8 students through multiple projects. And it allowed me to communicate, it allowed me to learn delegation. It allowed me to learn a lot of other responsibilities too, because I'm handling multiple projects as well as multiple students who are working with the goal of being able to present at conferences and being able to, of course, get potential manuscripts published in the future as well. And so I think it definitely perhaps might be a little bit of a cliche answer as well, but you do really get what you put into it. And if you kind of work your way up the ranks per se and take a little bit more of a leadership role in some of these labs, then I think those leadership skills that you're going to get are definitely going to be fantastic for you as you're developing your story through medical school.
So what I'm hearing is that there are a lot of skills that are to be learned. Dr. Donahue, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I do want to add to this because my area is mostly clinical. I work with human subjects, and it's very different than bench research. And honestly, Kelly can speak to it because Kelly was on a project with me as well. I know she does a lot of bench research now, but she was with human subjects, and we are educating physicians who have to talk to patients, and you have to have human contact when you do clinical research, and you kind of get a head up on HIPAA guidelines, and patient health is privacy. So I actually like to take students who might be a little bit shy when it comes to social skills and talking to patients, because it really forces you to dive headfirst into that.
Thank you, Dr. Donahue. That's a great point. While we're on the topic, what are the benefits between conducting research with clinical versus biomedical faculty?
I will say this, there's pluses and minuses to both. And the big negative in medical school of working on clinical subjects is it's very time consuming. It does take a lot more time to do it. You have to register clinical trials. You have to collect the subjects, which is most of the reason why they fail. So we do try to start them early on. It's very rewarding, but it is very time consuming.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. Dr. Green, did you have a perspective to add?
Yeah, and I agree. But I think both types of the research have tremendous benefit for our students from a more biomedical perspective, at least from the students that I've worked with before. I feel like the skills that you gain may be a little bit different than those that you'll have a chance to do later on in medicine. If you have research interests outside of human medicine, this may be the last time in your life to be able to explore them. You are all going to be very busy after this in your career. And if you have some interests that you want to, to get, this could be a great thing for future employers too. You might have something that really stands out, makes you look really unique. I have found that the students that I've worked with really kind of understand that. It gives them the time to be creative a little bit amongst all the classes and all the other work that they have to do as students.
I'm grateful for that opinion, Dr. Green. I was curious as to what you guys have to say on this as well on the panel, but what, if any, are the financial implications for a student that would like to conduct research? Are there additional costs during medical school to be involved in research?
Maybe I'm misinterpreting the question. Is it going to cost the student anything to be participating in research? No. The only time I've seen students who get maybe accepted to a conference, that the school can't fund every student who presents at a conference. So if anything, they would have to spend money to present at a conference, but to conduct research, no. And we offer internal grants and things to conduct the research. But the only time anything would be out of pocket is if they personally wanted to attend a conference that's somewhere else.
Dr. Green, did you have something to add?
Depending on which school you're attending, which are NYIT campuses, there are some travel grants, things like that you can apply through that can at minimum mitigate those costs for going to a conference. As Dr. Donahue said, sometimes that may not be able to include your per diem or anything like that. A lot of times, we will try to provide funding for going, for your stay in a hotel, maybe for your flight, something along those lines. But there are also different opportunities through the actual conference organizations too for student travel. So we're kind of in a good spot here. I think we have numerous ways for our students to be able to fund these types of things. But yeah, generally speaking, the research alone, no additional costs. If you have someone that's telling you there's additional costs, you might really want to question who that is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Green. Harrison?
I just wanted to elaborate on one point too. As Dr. Green just mentioned, some of these conferences do have programs for students. And one thing that I wasn't aware when I was first participating in conferences is volunteer programs that some of these conferences can have. During my first year, I found out when I was wanting to attend the Heart Rhythm Conference, it was going to be a fairly big conference with a lot of expenses associated with admission and travel. They mentioned to me that there's a volunteer program where if I dedicate at least 24 hours to this program to help with duties like moderating and running daily services, then the following days of the program, I would have all expenses paid. And they also assisted me with travel and was able to waive the entire fee for the conference. So opportunities like that definitely exist for students. And for those who aren't aware, including myself, whenever I was starting that process, that was very, very vital for me to actually attend these large conferences as well. So just wanted to add that point too.
Thank you, Harrison. Dr. Loftus, do you have something to add?
I was just going to say real quickly, I think that Dr. Green touched on this and what Harrison was saying, but national organizations that are hosting these conferences, so some of the medical societies and things like that, will also have possibly scholarships for students who are attending conferences, just attending the conference in itself. So even if you are presenting your research, you can still actually apply for some of these types of scholarships and money-based things.
Thank you, Dr. Loftus. I see, Ornella, you have a question to say?
Yes, this is for the faculty. I am a first year med student and I do not have a lot of statistical background. How would you go about doing that when you get onto a research project? How long does that take? And also, Dr. Donahue mentioned about there are not enough research projects for each student to take part of. So how are you able to diversify a research project to be split into multiple parts so that each student can still partake? If that makes sense.
Thank you, Ornella, for those great questions. Dr. DeRusso, do you have something to add?
Yeah, as to your first question about statistics, I think it kind of depends, but since my research is a lot of statistics intensive, but I've had medical students that really have almost no except basic experience in statistics or manipulating data or using programs like SPSS. And it's totally amazes me and actually is incredibly rewarding to see by the time they finish the project that they have developed these incredible skills to be able to analyze data and use programs like SPSS. So I think from that point of view, you have to have some background, but I think most all medical students have that basic background. And then you just have to have a desire to learn and get familiar with the different statistics. Some people just don't like to do that, but so long as you have that drive to kind of learn it, I think the end result is you'll end up with a good set of tools.
Thank you, Dr. DeRusso, for the great response. I have another question for the group here. Does research experience look good to potential employers? And in the same realm, what is the value of research for residencies and fellowships? Dr. Donahue?
So I have to jump in here because I am very proud. We just finished a study with a group of students where we asked this exact question. So residency directors, they will be presenting the abstract. So I did this with Dr. Dindy and Dr. Goldstein, and we took the top 16 specialties that were on the Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education. And we asked them to rank in order what was the most important for them when they're looking for somebody as a residency director. We sent it out to over 3,000 directors and we got about 250 responses. So I do want to say out of everything that was on there, the research ranked number 2 in 3 specialties. And one of them is actually Dr. DeRusso's specialty, and orthopedic surgery and radiology. So those 3 specialties ranked very high for looking at research. But then when it came to primary care, it ranked maybe number 4. So it does depend on the specialty. Honestly, with the findings we found were really interesting. I'm not going to go through them all because we have time constraints here. But for research, we found that those 3 do make a difference. And I do know dermatology actually is another big field. So if someone has a specialty they're looking at, they should look into what's important to them.
Thank you for that insightful response, Dr. Donahue. Dr. Loftus, did you have something to add?
Even without Dr. Donahue's research that is coming out, which is great, it's awesome because I think students need to see this even more. There's actually organizations that have done some research in this as far as asking programs to rank these things, not just directors. So it actually correlates exactly with what Dr. Donahue is saying here as far as I think a lot of students, when they get into medical school or even coming to medical school, that kind of overtakes them as far as not just academics, but they have to have research. And it definitely depends on the specialty you're going in. Those specialties that are more competitive, such as was mentioned, general surgery, orthopedic surgery, radiology, dermatology, neurosurgery, the things, ophthalmology, those things are going to have a higher basis for research. And then it definitely doesn't mean that you shouldn't do research because we're a competitive field, right? We're competitive to even be in medicine. It's going to help you to stand out as far as something to talk about in your interviews, as well as just someone looking at your CV and having a glance at it. So it's definitely something to think about doing. And many students come to me and they'll say, I'm just not research minded. I just don't like research. And it shouldn't be something that you have to push yourself to do either, right? But you have to understand that that may be something that defines you differently from another candidate. That's what you have to kind of decide on in that basis.
Thank you for that response, Dr. Loftus. I have a fun question for the entire group. If they can share some examples of research that has been accomplished by medical students at NYTCOM, and I would love some student perspective as well as to what research they're involved in as well. Dr. Green?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I've had the pleasure of teaching on both the New York campus as well as the Jonesboro campus. And I've had medical student researchers that have been trained on software to 3-dimensionally visualize CT anatomical data. Specifically, they're analyzing nasal sinuses and pneumatized regions in the skulls of birds to better understand their vocal resonation potential and comparative anatomy. And this is with flightless birds like ostriches, emus, cassowaries. And we're comparing these cranial anatomies to those of extinct non-avian dinosaurs. Now, are any of the medical students going to be going on to be paleontologists? I would love it, but probably not. Now, are these same students going to be very well versed in three-dimensional anatomy and really being able to interpret radiology? Yes, they definitely will. And so I think that's what's pretty important with doing research is just kind of trying to find something that can really help you in your career. All of the faculty here are well aware that the students are going into, clinical specialties, and we want to help them. And we can direct that research to better help the students for those who are interested in doing so, and those that are showing initiative to come in and try to do research during this very tough time in their life, medical school.
That's a fascinating insight, Dr. Green. Dr. DeRusso?
Yes, just to kind of go on to that, we just came back. We took 6 medical students actually to one of the premier academic surgical conferences. So these 6 medical students presented 8 abstracts at this conference, and it was just very rewarding to see because they're basically competing against all the big name medical schools, and they just held their own exceptionally well. So that's one of the points I'd like to get across. Also, is that the research doesn't have to be Nobel Prize winning. The goal is to get a good topic, get your specific aims, work on the project, get some results, put an abstract together, submit it to a conference, and then get the opportunity to present at a conference, which is just incredibly rewarding. I'd love to hear from the medical students too on that part of the reward of doing the research.
Thank you, Dr. DeRusso. Dr. Loftus?
Can I add something? I meant to say it a few moments ago, but just to what Dr. DeRusso said, the rewards of doing research, and this has come up several times, the benefits, the skills. One thing that I don't think is probably talked about enough is when you do go to a residency program, we talked about your employer. Well, the next employer for most medical students is going to be that residency program. And in residency programs, the ACGME very strongly encourages and sometimes requires programs and students to do research. So this does kind of get you ready. Even if you start research and you don't finish it, I know that many of us are type A and we have this mindset of we have to finish. So as I talk to students that I do research with, I let them know it may take years, as Dr. Donahue said earlier, and it may not finish when you are a medical student. You may carry it on into residency, but it also prepares you for any project that you might do in residency.
Thank you for that valuable insight, Dr. Loftus. If you have enough time, I would like to go to the last question. And the final question to all tonight is going to be, can you offer any closing advice for medical students that are interested in research? Harrison, would you like to add?
I've learned going through this process of research as a medical student and now participating in a research year that you can form research into a story for yourself as a student. I think a lot of these residency programs are looking for a story for every single one of these students, and this is beyond just your personal statement and your scores and everything that you've completed in medical school. But one thing I think that allows a lot of students to stand apart from others is participating in research that also can contribute to their story. And the story can be a way for you to show an interest in pathology or a disease that's important to you. And it could also be a way to show them your strengths and leadership, how good of a team player you are. And these various perspectives of research can help programs see the kind of physician that you want to be without even getting a chance to see you in action. And so I think that taking advantage of opportunities out there in research, no matter the specialty, no matter the field, no matter biomedical versus clinical, just taking advantage of these research opportunities and setting yourself up to be the best applicant for these programs is what's going to be, I believe, the best way for every student to succeed.
Thank you for that opinion, Harrison. Dr. Green, did you have any closing remarks?
Yes. If I had one piece of advice to give students in medical school, it would be not to become complacent with only your basic responsibilities. I think if you continue to push yourself in areas outside your comfort zone, whether that is doing bench laboratory research, or whether that's going out and talking to patients or presenting at a conference when you're scared of public speaking. It will all continue to provide a more worldly view for you that may aid in connecting with your future patients and your colleagues in your future. This is only from experience that I've had with the research students that have worked with me, but all of them have had such positive things to say about conducting research as a student. And a lot of these things they will never forget. They'll continue growing from these experiences and using these tools later in their life.
Thank you, Dr. Green. That's an optimistic sort of end to our panel here tonight on our podcast. So I want to thank you to our panel for joining us tonight and for sharing your many valuable insights and experiences. It has been an amazing conversation that will surely benefit medical students as they make decisions regarding research opportunities during the medical school years. Thank you once again, and thank you also to our valued Scope podcast listeners. I hope everyone has a terrific evening.